Seasoned speedrunner inside a Glad Jones takes on the craziest games, lists the best runs,
Glad Jones,
and fucks the hottest bitches. Actually, I don't know about that.
Alright, so to preface, I haven't included any classical full-on RPGs because there are so many that are so trash, or super obscure runs. Okay, you used to have to get the ball, then the perfect run happened, then it was dead, then a perfecter run happened.
Really loyal mods, especially the Legends.
Then another way was found, finally. Currently, Ocarina of Time is in a good state. The relatively newly found Gim route, where you trick the camera into thinking Link is in the water state while you grab a vine, is actually a beautiful run, high in skill and lots of fun in my opinion. But did you know about the run previous to this one? The other Gim route? Maybe you don't if you're new, because most people don't talk about it. Forget about it like a bad dream perhaps. Obviously it utilizes the same mechanic, while not in water but on land. Getting Link in a mode where he's considered busy by the game, pick up a nut and get the event. Breaking out of it due to oversights. Change the item value because you don't actually have to open the chest, just stand by it for it to set the item you're gonna get parameter. And then again trigger the nut collection for real, which happens when you enter any body of water and you get the ball in the deco tree. But the old route, while being slower, had one major drawback: RNG. The chance of a nut dropping from a Gomeling was never decided on fully, but estimated about 15 to 20% for both of them. You get 2 chances at a nut, because there are 3 Gomelings in the room, one of which needs to be kept alive to break you out of the glitch state later on. Because taking damage cancels being frozen in the pickup animation. So basically, all in all, at 7 minutes in, your run is going to die 80 to 90% of the time. If you combine that with all the crazy optimized tricks in OT any %, and probably adding on the nerve factor of actually getting the nut, it's one hell of an annoying RNG run. Or was, I should say. Okay, so if you're into Animal Crossing GameCube, all that, you know that this speedrun is not so good. It's almost like what could be worse, right? Its predecessor, DOUBUTSU no MORI, only released in Japan and then years later in China, actually has it beat. So like Animal Crossing GameCube, you're still striving to pay off all the debts, and you do that through a high valued item. In normal Animal Crossing it's a spring or auto medal, and then you duplicate it over and over and sell this back to Tom Nook. To do so, you also need a 2x1 table. Both of these can be gotten with a code entry in ACGC. But for this game, DNM, there are no codes, so you're still doing the same thing, but with an added layer of difficulty. Number 1, you need to get the table from a villager, rare, or having it available in Nook's shop. If you don't, you will pretty much have to reset since it will be too slow. I don't know the exact probabilities, but it's random and there's a couple of different tables competing against 400 or some items, probably. A very low chance. Then, for something high priced to sell to Nook, you get the giant beetle, which is like the worst insect to catch in Animal Crossing, and could potentially just kill the run on its own because it feels like not appearing.
I know everyone is pretty high.
With RNG like this, you'll be resetting for a long time before you have a shot at a decent run, and world record is not even too optimized, and you subsequently have to not mess up once you get the rare correct RNG. It's really only one category that is terrible, any %. It begins with the fact that you have to sit through a 20-minute prologue, much like the Majora's Mask intro, but worse. It's all cutscenes and movement. It's the most boring thing. I think it's more like 30 though, myself, since you have to do the tedious desert as well. This is followed by many hard tricks that you have to execute perfectly to have a chance at a top time. Early Lucky is especially frustrating, an annoying setup where you try to get out of bounds on the next screen, but there's a pixel perfect position and the control stick angle has to be just right. Okay, that actually sounds kinda easy, but trust me, it is not. The first piece of notable RNG is Blooper. He's not too bad, but he can really mess you up sometimes. Basically, throughout the game you use an ability where you can jump until you miss an input, but there are actually hidden caps to this. You know you hit the cap if you land all the way back, but if you land right next to him, then you messed up. Sometimes he can be really nice though and give you 1.5 turn, which saves a lot of time. Also, the Fright Jar has a random chance to not work on an enemy, which loses a bit of time if that happens. In Chapter 8, things get really bad, beginning with the random chances for some enemies with projectiles to give you an encounter, and then dupli ghosts which have to transform correctly. Mostly that goes well, but if they all decide to transform, then you lose a life shroom, and that's pretty much the end of the run all of the time. Same with late game Junior Troopa, he seems to go right mostly, 70% of the time maybe, but if you do get screwed, the run is over because you need all your life shrooms to be able to cope with the final fights. Now the substantial RNG and the reason this game gets on this list is because 1.5 hours in you have to face Hallway Bowser, whom is actually worse than the final Bowser. If you're going for world record, you have to use the timeout attack because it saves 40 to 50 seconds, but it only has a 33% chance to work. And if you fail that, you have to reset. And then on top of everything else, if you make it through Hallway somehow, then you have to face final Bowser, whom you can get a 5 cap on for the quickest victory. But that only happens 21% of the time, and is the least likely option for the caps. The more common 4 cap at 43% usually followed into a 50-50 for the run to die, because you almost never have 5 life shrooms at this point, so you will have to rely on a close call. Or you can get the 23% on the 3 cap.
I'm not surprised.
Which just kills the run instantly, because you cannot recover from that. All in all, what makes this game kind of the worst is that it has all the RNG at the end. And it's just not very pleasant to run. No one wants to run this. I would know.
Just the 4 cap and I'm gonna lose a fuck ton of time.
Did this fucking idiot forget about a game? Tell him in the comments below if you did, and please subscribe to this damn video and like this channel.